Today we're going to show you how to properly mix sealer in 55-gallon drums. Before we start, you're going to need a few things. One is you're going to need access to water, preferably a water hose with a valve on the end of it. You're going to need a long drill mixer and a powerful 18 to 21 volt drill, or a corded drill will work as well, as long as it's heavy duty, something that'll facilitate the shaft. You'll notice that this drill mixer is pretty long. It can easily reach to the bottom of the drum. This is really important because majority of the settlement and clay in the sealer sits at the very bottom of the drum, and it's really important for a proper mixture that we're able to incorporate getting all of that when we mix. The next thing you're going to need is just a clean, simple broom handle. Make sure there's no loose debris on it. We're going to use this to do a dip test, and we're going to do that before and after to show you what mixed sealer looks like and what unmixed sealer looks like. So as you can see, I've got two drums here. I've already taken the hardware off the lids. So I'm simply going to lift the lid, and we've got our sealer inside. And before we start, we're just going to give you a picture of what unmixed sealer looks like from the surface. And as you can see from the water inside, it's mostly dark colored water on top. It doesn't have much of a soup consistency or a stew consistency. The consistency of mixed sealer should be similar to that of a thin pudding, or to that of almost a thick gravy. If there's thin water on top, if it's really liquidy, it's not mixed. The next thing we're going to do to show you what mixed sealer looks like, or unmixed sealer looks like, is we're going to do a dipstick test. This dipstick I'm going to put to the very bottom of the unit, just straight down. I'm going to pull it up, and we're going to see a separation between the two dark lines. One of them is going to be the line of dark water. The other one's going to be the noticeably thick sealer, or clay emulsion of the sealer that sits at the bottom of the drum. So I've got my dipstick all the way in. So right here where I'm holding my hand is the line of where the water was on the drum. You can see from here to here it's relatively clear, and that as we go further down, you can see noticeably that it's some pretty thick sludge almost at the halfway mark. That means right now that we've got a mix down to the point where we get an equal consistency from where my hand is, which is the top of the liquid level, all the way down. We want to see a nice even sealer mixture. I've taken the lid off of my 55-gallon drum. I'm now going to take the drill mixer, insert it, and begin mixing. Now you'll notice when I put in the drill mixer, I'm going to be going in an up and down and slight side-to-side motion. Start with your mixer at the very bottom of the drum, and as you feel comfortable with it, slowly start to move it up as some of the sediment in the bottom starts to loosen. So I'm going to start. We've completed mixing our sealer for about 4 to 5 minutes. It looks like it has a nice consistency. So what I'm going to do now is just do a quick dipstick check and make sure that we've got equal mixing throughout the drum. So as you can see, we've got a nice uniform solid black line from top to bottom. I don't see any noticeable chunks or any noticeable changes in consistency from top to bottom. That's perfectly mixed sealer. So I've got my spray system loaded up in my truck, and I'm getting ready to load sealer in it for the first time. I need to make sure that I check a few things to make sure that I'm going to have an easy time loading sealer and that my equipment's going to operate for a long time. I've already checked my engine oil, but if you haven't checked yours, be sure to pull your dipstick, do a check, and make sure it's in line with the user guide on your engine manual. Make sure that you have regular unleaded gasoline in your tank. Never use old gas or gas that's been sitting in an old can. You can't trust that it's completely clean and that it's going to run good in your machine. I've got 2 drain plugs on the top and bottom. I've checked twice just to make sure that these plugs are completely tight. As you can see, there's 2 ways to load sealer in this machine. The first way is if I'm going to fill up at a local plant, I can simply lift the lid on top and I can have the plant's hose put into the lid and I can fill sealer that way. If you prefer filling sealer from drums, you can use the 2-inch loading port, and this is what we're going to do today. So I'm done checking my engine and pump. I'm sure that these are ready to run. There's gas in the engine, there's sufficient oil, the drain plugs in the pump are secure, and everything looks like it's ready to go. When I'm getting ready to load sealer with my loading port, there's a few things that need to be checked. First of all, the lower ball valve needs to be in the closed position. And I can do that by turning this ball valve so that it's running non-parallel with the valve. Secondly, the top valve needs to be in the open position to allow sealer to circulate into the tank. Now we're ready to load sealer. I've chosen to fill my tank with sealer from 55-gallon drums. So what I'm going to need in order to make this transfer is the following. Good set of gloves. I want to make sure that I keep my hands cleaned. You're going to want a gardening hose with an on-off valve on the end of it, just to make sure that you're able to, for one, prime your pump, as well as clean up any drippings or mess that occur during the transfer. I've got a 15-foot length of transfer hose here with quick connects. This hose connects to my transfer port on my pump, and the other end's going to connect to the drum attachment that I've got that's going to suck sealer from the drum. So we've done all of our pre-inspection checks. We know that we have lots of oil in our engine. We know that we have clean, fresh gasoline in the tank, and we know that our tank plugs are completely fastened and snug. Now I'm going to prepare for loading by removing the plug from the transfer port, or removing the pins and loosening the cam locks and pulling the plug out. And I'm going to grab my transfer hose, specifically the male end of the transfer hose, and I'm going to plug it back in to the loading port that I removed the plug from. And then I'm going to fasten those cams up and make sure it's good and snug. Next thing I'm going to do is, before we can actually begin transferring sealer, we need to make sure that our pump and all of the hoses and plumbing are completely primed. If there's any air in the system when you're trying to transfer sealer, your pump's going to be working a lot harder, and you're going to have a harder time getting sealer out of the drum into your tank. If there's one thing that I can stress in this process that's really important, is make sure that you have your hoses and your pump completely primed with water. And you're going to do that by making sure that this end of your transfer hose is actually above the level of your pump. And fluid mechanics tell us that if we fill this at above the rate of the actual pump, that we're going to have no air in the actual pump, and we're going to have fluid run above the pump, which means when we go to prime, we're going to have a success. I'm just going to take my hose, hold the female end of my transfer hose above the pump, and begin filling. This is full of water, so I don't want to lose my prime, so I'm going to pretty quickly make sure that I get this onto the male end and clamp it. And I'm all clamped in and ready to load sealer. And for the next thing, I'm going to start my engine, and immediately, as soon as I turn my engine on, the pump does not have any controls other than the 2 ball valves. It's going to immediately start to load sealer. I'm done loading sealer into the spray system. I've cleaned out the back of my truck to make sure that there's no drip sealer or running sealer anywhere. I've completely sealed up my transfer hose to make sure that it doesn't dry out, just by putting one end to the other and plugging it up, so I can put that in the back of my truck. And finally, if there's a little bit of sealer left in the back of the drums, which there typically is, I never like to waste, so I'm probably going to reuse the little bit of sealer that's left by dumping it into the next drum when I load. But for now, I just want to seal these drums up. I want to clean the drum kit to make sure that there's no chunks or dry pieces. And I'm going to do that by just using the hose and giving it a rinse off. It's one of the things you don't really think about, but maintaining a clean transfer kit, including the barrel kit, without sealer on the outsides, means the next time when you go to plug in, it's going to be really easy to connect. If you let sealer dry on this fitting, it can be really hard to plug into the ports, and you can sometimes not get a good seal and result in a leak. So make sure that you clean your transfer kit thoroughly after you're done loading sealer. Till next time, I'm just going to put the lids on my drums. And that's it. Good to go to work.